Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. It's kind of like watching popcorn pop. It's sort of just when you think no one else is going to join you, a few more come in and you notice the participant number goes up. But I want to go ahead and get started. So thank you all for joining me again this afternoon. There is still a lot up in the air, and it feels like we're starting to get a new sense of rhythm. For those of you who are music fans, I just learned yesterday that the band The Strokes just released their new album a couple days ago, and it's called The New Abnormal. And I think that might be kind of where we are right now. I want to start by thanking people for their initiative and their creativity in stepping up in ways that perhaps no one even asked them to. And this isn't an exhaustive list. I know probably every one of you are doing something like this, but I do want to call it out a little bit and give you some examples of things I'm hearing out there. I want to give the example of Naomi Smith over at Manzanita, who is an amazing sewer, and she has been sewing bags for the teachers who work with our early childhood special ed families and children, for them to put materials in to give to the families. And she's also apparently been sewing some weighted vests and similar things as well for our kids. Gabriela Peden, who works with Juntos Aprendemos, connected with Erin Taylor, one of our care coaches, to coordinate food drops for some of our families. And Gabriela shared with me that Anna, who works with her, met one of our Juntos Aprendemos families at a food bank who were afraid to go into the food bank because they weren't sure anyone would speak Spanish. Give the example of Kimberly Strong getting curious about how to get books in the hands of students by exploring a partnership with districts and local bookstores. We have mindfulness sessions for staff by Team Reconnect and Kendra Coates. And our Culture of Care coaches are offering virtual wellness groups. Hearing stories such as this is, well, it makes us hopeful, and it makes us, kind of fills my heart. But there are also, we know, some challenging stories going on as well. Educators and students are feeling overwhelmed. Last week, we heard stories from some of our own team members about the volume of email messages coming from Google Classroom. Anna Higgins shared that her 5th grader received 156 emails in beginning his Google Classroom process, and Kendra Coates' 3rd grader similarly received 76. And for those of us who don't still have children at home, I encourage us to be listening to these stories and recognizing how hard it is on families right now. As we're feeling eager and ready to offer our services, be thinking about how many other emails, how many other connections those families have been getting as they're trying to navigate this very tough time. And I also ask you to think about some of our newer employees to the ESD, who I'm thinking of one who moved here less than 2 months ago and is living alone right now and trying to navigate how to be in this new space, this new community, this new place of work. I encourage you to reach out to those folks and reach out to each other right now. And I know you have your own stories of both hope and challenge. And as you experience these times and have questions, concerns, or ideas, please continue to share them with us. The Your Voice link is on our work from home webpage, and we encourage you to use that to put in those questions, concerns, and ideas. And we're going to add a section to it as well that will allow you to add some good news stories as well, so we can be sharing those. So just like last week, I want to take a few of those questions that came up through the Your Voice link and answer a few of them for us. At the same time, I encourage you to go to the FAQ page. Some of the questions you may have already been answered. So take a look at that when you get a chance. I think folks have been doing a really good job of curating that for us. So an example of a question we received was, considering we will now not be returning back to school for this school year, will we still lose unused PTO or personal time off from this school year, or is there a way we can use it in the upcoming year? And I think my answer to this is, to the extent that we can still hold on to normal, what was true before, we're going to continue to do that. And so to the extent that we have statutes in place or a collective bargaining agreement in place or existing practices in place, we're going to continue to use those to drive as many answers to questions as we reasonably can. And so, for example, unused sick leave by statute automatically carries over. That will continue to be true, whereas past practices and discussions through our collective bargaining agreement, personal leave does not. So we're going to continue to do that exactly as we have in the past. Another example of a question we received was, how do I submit a request for language access services to connect with Spanish-speaking families? This is a great question, and I think a lot of you may not even know that we have a foreign language interpreter program within the ESD. You may not have needed to access it before, and we do. And Geraldine Casimiro is our foreign language access coordinator. And you can email her directly, geraldine.casimiro@hdesd.org, with the details of your request. If you're looking at interpretation, which for those of us who don't normally spend time around this, interpretation is verbal and translation is written. For interpretation, if you could send all the information about who we're talking about, when the virtual meeting will occur, and when you need that, that would be great. In the case of translation, you would send a document along. Please note, this is a fee for service. And so many of our districts have a budget for this already. Some of our programs do as well. Please work with your supervisor to find out how that will be taken care of. And if you and your supervisor aren't sure, please get in touch with me and we'll figure it out together. And the third and last question for today is the SSA, or the Student Success Act, funding stable for next year? That's a great question. Like many things, we are still uncertain of the exact impact of all that's going on right now, including our economy. The initial funding that the Student Success Act was based on was an estimate based on how much the state thought the CAT tax would generate. So the CAT tax officially started on January 1st, and interestingly, today is April 15th. It's the first day, today is, that businesses are required to estimate how much their CAT tax will be for the year and to pay that today. After today, we'll get a general sense of exactly how much businesses think they will owe for the year in the CAT tax, and that will help us to answer this question. There is also the issue of the legislature is likely to go into special session. They said they will, we just don't know exactly when. We think it will happen after the May revenue forecast, and they may look to do some tweaks or some changes to the CAT tax. But what's clear is they have said up to this point, they have no interest in stopping the CAT tax or even delaying it, just tweaking. And so we are pretty sure that while the estimate may be off, that the Student Success Act will still be funded. For those of us who went through the recession 12 years ago and remember how difficult that was, I will just share with you that while we don't know what is going to happen with the economy, there are some differences now than what was true 12 years ago. Number one, the state has almost a $2 billion rainy day fund that it didn't have 12 years ago. And so as we look at how things may or may not be different from that time, there are some safety nets in place that weren't there at that time. And I don't want to oversell how safe we might be. I just want you to understand there are some things that we hope will make this easier than it was back then. And as we learn things, we will be communicating them with you. And as of right now, like you, we're still learning and still discovering how COVID-19 is impacting our economy. A few other updates to share with you apart from the questions. Distance learning has been up and running now in pretty much in all of our districts. Rachel and her team, the tech team, have been working to make sure we and most of our families have access to what we need for distance learning. In the case of our families and communities, very exciting progress. They're ready to launch, hopefully by the end of the week, our Learn at Home website for families and communities to help them be able to access resources for distance learning. For our team, for us, the Work at Home website has been in place for quite a while now. Feels like forever. I think it's only a couple of weeks. But please access that if you haven't already. There are professional learning and training opportunities there. There are some systems in place for you to be able to not have to reveal your personal cell phone number and be able to communicate with families in different ways while still making sure that you're secure and they're secure. A couple of other updates, standing ready emergency childcare. We got some new guidance from the state since last I spoke with you. We still don't know exactly what the demand is in our region. We are balancing between needing to be ready to serve. And I think I shared with you last week that they were going to give us a few weeks notice. The new guidance says it could be as little as 3 days notice. But the flip side of that is there hasn't been a strong demand up to this point. And the state has been surprised at how little the demand has been relative to how much they thought they would have to stand up. So we are standing ready to serve, while also making sure our planning recognizes that we may not be asked to provide childcare or somewhere in between. So if you or someone in your family you feel are at risk and you wouldn't be able to provide this particular service, please make sure you've reached out to J.L. Hayden to let him know your particular circumstances, and that will be done in a confidential way. And the third thing I wanted to just update you on is our facilities. We're still asking you to stay home and save lives. If you must access a facility, talk with your supervisor first, and this would be a rare exception. Bob Martin, our facilities guru, has set up a station at every single site where, as you enter the building, there is a place for you to grab a mask, get some gloves, other PPEs, and some wipes and that. And again, we ask you to stay there only for as long as you need to, and please set that up with your supervisor before you go in. So I want to thank you again for your participation, your patience, your flexibility. We're going to continue to stay home and save lives. We need you to stand ready, and for many of you, you're not only standing ready, you're hard at it. And please continue to do that work that our students and our families need you to do. Please stay connected to students, families, our districts, and each other. Take care of yourself, your family, and each other. And I'll see you again next week. Take care.